See? So let me watch the dashboard and make sure that we're getting what we need.
All right.
What we need to make sure is that the audio is coming. Let me watch the dashboard and make sure that we're getting. Well, we're definitely
All right.
getting audio. Okay. So we get rid of that one. And we can get rid of this one.
Yeah, Jeff sounded pretty down.
Yeah, he was pretty down, but he'll bounce back. He's doing okay. He did the right thing. So, today, it's Friday, the 23rd of December, 2016. We're going to be doing Bunto Skiffler and myself, we're going to be doing a review of somebody's YouTube, right?
That's right, Sid.
Yeah,
Hello.
YouTube.
Happy holidays, everybody. Well, I'll tell you the backstory on this, Sid. I've recently joined a trans community called Trans NZ. It's based in New Zealand. And the way I came across this person, her name's Andrea, was Rob. You know how Rob Beasley, the infamous Rob Beasley, he likes to message spam sites. And this is one of the sites that he was spamming.
Yeah.
And so I checked it out, and it seemed pretty sensible. And I noticed this lady's video, and I started watching it. And to me, she seemed very much on point with her, points that she was making. I was just interested to see if you concurred to, or if you had any, points of contention.
So this is what this video is about.
This video is about what is a heterosexual cis heterosexual to the trans, person, and so her logic, seems pretty
I'm absolutely lost. What is a what?
Okay, do you know what a trans woman is?
My understanding of a trans woman is a man who dresses up as a female and acts
That's a
like
transvestite. A trans woman is somebody who was born the wrong gender. So, or in this case, it would be a XY that wants to select the gender of a female, of a woman, while a trans man would be a female who wants to, an XX who wants to preferred gender is of the male. That's what a trans person is. Okay. Does that make sense to you, Sid?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And so they have this term called cisgendered, which is a person who, how can I say it's, you'll see what I mean when the way she explains it in the video. I don't want to like trample on what she's going to say, but this is, a quick synopsis of this video is how a trans person sees the heterosexual. How about that? You understand that, Sid?
How a trans person sees a heterosexual.
Right.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Yeah, I can buy that.
Shall we begin?
Yeah. So let's see. Let me bring the subject into the conversation, and I guess we'll just let her say what she has to say.
Thanks.
Hello, it's Angelica, and I just want to apologise for all the clutter in my room. Everything's in here because there's building work going on in the rest of my house. It's a beautiful sunny day and I've just been out for a run. That's why I'm wearing this polo neck jumper. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. Today, I want to talk to you about sexuality. Now, obviously, sex is about procreation, because Mother Nature evolved this instinctive impulse in us to maximize the propagation and survival of our genes, not for our personal pleasure.
Pause, please.
It differs between men and women due to our different...
Okay, sexuality for other than pleasure. How does that strike you, Sid? That the basis is, purely procreation?
Well, I don't.
disagree.
Well, no, I do disagree.
You do disagree. Sex is mainly for pleasure.
Well, it's like, yeah, why not? Sex is mainly for pleasure. If you're in the childbearing years, then children will come out of that pleasurable part of your life.
But scientifically, you know, in a way, pleasure is like an immaterial quality. I mean, there is, you know, some substance to pleasure, but the main animus behind, you know, evolution and, you know, the human race going forward is, of course, procreation. You understand that much?
That's like saying the main reason that we eat is just so that we don't starve, and so we eat enough, enough so as not to starve, right? But we don't do that.
Right. That's scientifically valid.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, continue. But this is how a trans person sees it.
Okay.
Sex is procreation.
Biological reproductive roles. Long ago, before law enforcement, before contraceptives, a woman's welfare depended on her ability to attract attention, sympathy, and support from society around her. Thus, a woman's lifestyle includes seeking attention in a variety of ways.
Pause.
To the woman, please. It is important.
I 100% agree with her observation. I think it's quite valid, and you know, it's an observation that's not, you know, really put forward enough when, you know, I hear discussions of sexuality and LGBT. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that made me interested about this video is she really hit the point on the head.
To have a network of support in which there will be men seeking to win her favor. It will be to her advantage if they do not divide their support to other women, and so she seeks to be the center of attention and likely to feel jealous, shaming any man who shows interest in another woman.
Okay, pause 1 second, Sid.
However,
Sid, when women claim that this is not true or claim the opposite, do you ever like look at that with a grain of salt? I mean, oh, I'm not pretty and I'm not seeking attention. I mean, you know, people like Sugar and, you know, so forth, Kardashians. I mean, that jumps to mind. I mean, it seems like, you know, I always say is like, you know, in the store, the cosmetic section for women is like, you know, aisles wide. I mean, that's one of the basis of the female gender, is seeking attention.
I don't make a judgment either way, really.
Well, I mean, you know, it's not so much making a judgment, but looking at it scientifically, Sid. You have to make that observation.
And, I don't have to concern myself with being one.
Oh, really? Okay, so you prefer women that aren't attractive?
No. I prefer
that's right. So, I mean, that just puts the lie to everything you just said, that you're not judgmental.
Women who are attractive, but are attractive without the need for slapping on, you know, products in order to make them attractive.
Okay, who do you think is an attractive woman at the moment? Somebody who's like in their 20s or 30s.
No, it doesn't matter as long as they're not covered in. I'm not a big fan of makeup on a woman, to be honest. So
fine, but I mean, do not all women strive to be attractive? Usually, that's the way we look at women, you know, through our eyes.
I don't think all women. No.
Not all women, but I mean, you know, that's like one of the basis.
I think all young women, yes.
But okay, well, you know, what about all the plastic surgery that, you know, mature women go through in order to look young?
I don't live in California, although I do live in the sort of the California of the north. Again, these things go with again, youth, and with what do they call it? Body dysphoria of some sort. Okay, so I mean, what are you trying to say here? That, you know, you have not perceived that women are trying to be attractive on the whole? Yes, no, I look. Yes, they obviously are trying to be attractive on the whole, but the younger they are, the more they're trying to be attractive.
Right. I don't disagree.
Shall we?
Go ahead.
It would not be to her advantage to squander her limited yet highly demanding reproductive capacity by breeding with an average partner. No, her mating ritual needs to select the fittest partner through a process of elimination. She instinctively selects for achievement and status. She will instinctively test his endurance and performance. She may choose a dominant male who is not even part of her support network, as his genes are likely to produce children who also perform better. Copulation is the reward that she offers only to the best, even though she will enjoy it every bit as much as he will.
Pause.
This is the essence.
Okay, what do you think of that viewpoint, Sid? Any comments?
No.
Okay.
I'm just listening to it as if it's a point of view of somebody else. That.
Okay.
You know,
I have this thing called challenge sex. That I believe that's one of the more thrilling, fulfilling facets of sexuality. Do you like challenges, Sid, or do you just like what kind of attraction do you look at? I mean, do you look at capturing a woman, or?
I'm kind of more sapiosexual, that comes with all sorts of its own problems.
Okay, you want to tell our listeners what sapiosexual sexuality?
When you're attracted to the intelligence of a person.
All right, you prefer a highly intelligent brain.
I do, but
to one that's
I also have sort of physical sort of preferences in a woman over what other people would have in. So you got to try and get it all together, all in the same package. It's not easy.
Okay, but I mean, you do like challenges, right? You're up for the challenge of trying to acquire a sapiosexual woman.
The challenge, nah.
Why not?
Because there's really not one missing. So why do I need a challenge?
Okay, her premise is that basically the more attractive a woman is, the more that she's unwilling to settle for something beneath her. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think that's nonsense?
Could you repeat that?
Her position is that the more attractive a woman is, the less willing she is to settle for something that's beneath her.
Yeah, that's very possible, for at least for younger. Yes, no, I agree. Yes, I'd go for that.
For example, let's say, I don't know, me winning the hand of somebody like freaking Miranda Kerr or something. I mean, it's sort of like, I'm kind of like out of her league.
I don't know who Miranda Kerr is.
Well, there's all sorts of hotties nowadays. Roll the tape, please.
Of a woman's innate attitude to sex, to attract, to select, and to think of herself as the prize. Survival of a man's genetic offspring, on the other hand, will improve when he is willing and able to provide for them and their carer, even to the extent of sacrificing himself, if need be, to guarantee their safety.
It's a very romantic outlook.
This kind of man will feel protective towards the woman he cares for. He may be submissive and desire to please her. He will be motivated by a sense of duty and easily controlled by shaming. For him, it is not advantageous to dedicate his energy to support offspring of a genetic rival. And so, these men might disrespect promiscuous women, and they too can be prone to jealousy. Now, a very different...
All right. like I said, she in a way has a very romantic, sentimentalist outlook. In a way, I kind of look at things pragmatically. She is caught up in the world of procreation here. I mean, when she mentions that, like, the woman shames the man, does that what happened to you in your case, Sid? That, the woman kept shaming you in order for you to, do her bidding?
Nah, I think she's. I haven't really. She hasn't bought me on anything. She hasn't sold me on anything yet.
Okay, but were you shamed by
she's
women?
Probably like the like an anti-sexer or something.
I don't know. I mean, she has a viewpoint. She hasn't said she dislikes sex, but let me ask you, Sid, in your relationships with women, did they shame you?
No.
You never got shamed by a woman?
In what way?
Like a true man should do this, for example, a real man would do this, throw something in your face?
No.
No. So women, never shamed you in your relationship?
No.
Okay.
Well, I shame myself. What would I need a woman to do?
Oh, you shamed yourself. Okay.
Sure.
Like you diminished yourself in her eyes, or she diminished you?
That's a good question. It was more me diminishing myself to myself.
Yeah, down. And he's in which country? He's in America. Now, this is the wrong Hangout.
You got in the wrong hangout.
We have to do this now. Yeah.
Oops. Well, our good friend Bulldog came in and out. Roll the tape, please, Sid. I don't think she's an anti-sexer, Sid. Not by any.
The strategy that appeals to some men is to sow his seeds far and wide, in abundance, with little regard for how they will be cared for. As for his genes, survival relies on numbers to conquer natural selection of adversity. He will be an opportunist and have little regard for how others see him.
Are you? Wow, interesting way she looks at
As a
men.
primitive instinct, sexual behavior is driven by emotions. The emotion that impels a man to provide for and protect his woman is called love. The emotion that motivates a woman to attract a man and reward him is also called love. Love involves affection and respect for each other, a desire to complement each other as they work together towards common goals. It provides the long-term bonding necessary to raise children to maturity. A relationship is more likely to work where a dominant personality is paired with a submissive one.
Okay.
A dominant one is on a power.
Okay. Do you believe that, Sid, that in a relationship one has to be the top and when the other person has to be the bottom?
Not necessarily, but I can see that how it could work.
Okay, so in your relationship, you're the dominant or the submissive?
Oh, hell never. I was the doormat.
You're always the dominant.
No, the doormat.
The doormat. Oh, I see. So you're the submissive.
Yeah, I'm the introvert.
Did you have any say in that, or is this just the way it ended up?
Well, it's just the way it ended up through the choices I made or allowed, or through the situations that I allowed to unfold.
That happens.
Mm-hmm.
Power trip, while the submissive one may derive pleasure in serving the desires of his or her dominatrix. But in extreme cases, it can manifest as sadomasochism and even rape. Psychologically, there may be a connection with Stockholm Syndrome, where the victim feels an inexplicable allegiance to their captor, but willingly submitting to another is usually based on altruism. It requires...
Did you want to stop there?
Okay. The victim. Okay, when you were together with a woman, did you feel like you're in the Stockholm Syndrome, Sid, or were you just like,
No, never.
Like you had to obey the woman or else.
They would, yeah, that was very uncomfortable actually. But it was never in the Stockholm system where I
When you
felt
fell
that,
in love with your aggressive.
that I felt that there was some kind of a weird connection. I felt more
Right.
isolated than connected, ever.
That's interesting. You know, but one thing I like to tell our listeners is like not everything is sexuality based, I think, in a relationship. Like, you know, as far as like submissiveness and top, like I think like in my case, like sometimes I'll be an anti-top or a submissive just for the sake of, you know, puffing the top. That the top has to like prove himself, you know, that's a big factor, you know, is rising to the challenge. You know, so in a way it's sort of like she's saying everything in a sexual way, I guess, for the sake of this, you know, explaining what heterosexuality is. But in my mind, it's sort of like, well, you know, some things transcend sexuality. You can go ahead, Sid.
Requires trust. The dominant one gains this trust by avoiding abuse and being possessive, showing a willingness to defend his or her possession from rivals. This may give the latter a sense of security in their surrender. Thus, a habitual sexual partnership is created even if the couple have little else in common. Possibly due to gender prejudice, for some it is psychologically easier to be submissive as a woman and harder to be dominant over a man, as men are generally stronger.
Is that true, Sid? I mean, women are supposed, on the whole, submissive, or does it matter?
I don't think that you can stereotype that.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right. Okay, how about just in the eyes of our media? Does our media want nice, soft women, or do they want renegade women?
The media?
Yeah, like, you know, you open a magazine, you turn on the TV. Is it like the nice, soft, gentle woman, or is it
that's what I'd like to see.
Or is it a very aggressive woman that they put forth?
No, I don't like the aggressive at all, especially on TV. Because it's pushed. It's kind of forced a little bit on TV.
Oh, it is false. Okay.
Not false, but forced.
Forced. Oh, I see.
Of course, it's false.
Okay, well, let's see what her big. You know, I'm waiting for the punch here.
Some dominant women may find that dressing like men and dating a feminine partner enhances their experience, while similarly, there are submissive men who find dressing as women will enhance their sexual experience.
Okay.
This is a sexual...
Okay. The difference between me and a tranny, Sid, I remember like there's a lot of stereotype and bigotry that I've encountered here on G+, that they think like, you know, a homosexual wants to be a woman, right? Have you come across that, you know, eventually Bunto wants to wear a dress?
No,
you know,
I've never heard that.
I've heard that, you know, Christian hillbilly and the ilk, right? They put these stereotypes forward of LGBT,
so homosexuality is a gateway drug to cross-dressing or something.
Right. That's their assertion. You know, this is saying that it's like, well, the reason that, you know, Bunto wants to put on a dress and be a woman is because that the woman is that selected in the gender, right? That the gender is more submissive. You know, if he was a female, he'd be making sense rather than a male, you know, wanting partnership. You know. Anyway, so just continue. That struck my mind there.
Okay.
Sexual motivation to cross-dress. Thus, it's not quite the same phenomenon as transgender identity that can manifest in very young children who are not sexually aware yet.
I agree.
During puberty, those children often displace their gender aspirations onto a partner or prefer to come out as homosexual. Based on my own gender identity, my theory is that only when sexuality fails to develop during puberty do we remain transgender into adulthood. Many sexually motivated crossdressers return to their normal gender identity in everyday interactions once they've been sexually satisfied.
Okay.
Well,
interesting. Like, in my own personal case, it's like, you know, I didn't know anything was different until I got to like puberty, 13 years old. I was like, wow, you know, I'm empathizing a lot with the female role.
Oh, really?
Only for coupling, not for like anything else. Like, you know, liking Godzilla, comic books, boy type stuff. I all loved, man. But it was like, wow, when it came all of a sudden to discovering sexuality, it was like, wow, man. It's the bee's knees to be the woman. But the thing is, like, she's saying that, the CDs, right? The cross-dressers, they like dressing as women, and once they get the sex out the way, then they go back to being a male.
Right.
I guess that makes sense. Opposed to the trans woman, the politically correct trans woman who completely assumes that gender, full-timer.
Right.
So let's see how she caps it. Is there going to be a big distinction between cross-dressing and trans?
To some sexually motivated transsexuals, their sex life has simply become the main focus of their entire existence.
Yep, I agree.
The number of unwanted pregnancies is an indicator of just how primitive the urge to copulate is. Abortions are rarely performed for medical reasons or due to rape. They occur because the primitive sex drive overcame the rational understanding of the need to take precautions. A man simply has no say in the decision to terminate a pregnancy, so for all we know, he may well have wanted a child, and unlike the woman, he may have no way of knowing whether the woman might be receptive. Sex appeal is displayed by the female to prompt the sexual lust of the male. It may manifest as a woman dressing slutty, yet she still must remain selective about whom she chooses to mate with, because any woman who is willing will have little trouble finding someone ready to oblige, regardless of how well behaved most men might be. The number of so-called deadbeat dads are not an indication of a general deficiency in men, but an indication of poor choices of sexual partner made by the mother.
Wow.
These considerations...
Any comment on that, Sid?
I'd have to agree with that.
Okay, so it's the woman's fault for deadbeat dad. If she would have made a better choice, pick, the white knight, she wouldn't be alone.
Yeah. And
Wow.
that I'm not saying that the men are equally at fault in the men's way, in their own way, but let's not forget that the woman has made a choice.
Okay.
A free choice.
All right, well, let's finish the video and then I'll spill my guts, but let's let the woman finish. Go ahead.
To disbelieve the gynocentric victim rhetoric that in every situation seems to find a man to blame. During puberty, hormones kick in, yet the adolescent's mind is still full with childhood fairy tales of romance. By filling young women's minds with ideological propaganda about women's sexual liberation, feminism is creating a culture in which underage girls get themselves pregnant. Sexy attire, as well as cosmetics.
What's not to love about this woman so far? Okay. Feminism is a plus or a minus, Sid? Your take?
Feminism is a plus.
I would say feminism is a plus. I mean, to blame it for, the ills of society, I think is counterintuitive. It just doesn't make sense, lady. I mean, it's important that a woman has at least the same identity as a man, in a progressive society, I believe. Doesn't have, okay, Sid, could you imagine if we went back to the 1800s and, talked to ladies back then? We'd be like, what's wrong here? They would be so, what would you say, hesitant, right? They would just feel so inhibited. We wouldn't be used to that. Like the inhibited mind.
I have no idea.
Well, let's suppose, you went back to South Africa in the 50s, right? And talking to those people, I mean, couldn't you detect that those people were oppressed? The blacks?
50s, if I was talking to who?
Let's say you went back to 1960 South Africa, and we're talking to the black people back then. Could you not tell that they were oppressed?
Well, I was there, and I could tell that they were oppressed.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is, if we went back to when feminism was just beginning and talked to the ladies back then, we could detect that those ladies were oppressed.
Right. Or felt oppressed.
So I don't feel, I can understand, some of the viewpoints of her, but I certainly do not see feminism as a hindrance to women. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's my take. Go ahead.
Ethics are not fetishes.
Thanks.
They are designed to enhance feminine physical attributes which are essential to arouse instinctive masculine sexuality. Other types of erotic cosplay may
I agree. Keep going. I was just saying, okay.
They revolve around roles of dominance and submission. The discredited psychiatrist Blanchard attributed cross-dressing to autogynephilia, a term he coined meaning lusting after oneself in drag. He is wrong. They are no different to any other cosplay. It is no different from sexy attire that cis women might wear, either to excite their partner or to enhance their own self-esteem. Blanchard's theory is disproven by trans women who manifest as women in day-to-day activities without there being any sexual sentiments present whatsoever.
She put a qualifier on that. 1 second, Sid, stop.
Just to...
I do hope she watches this review, but the thing is, she qualified it right there. There is a distinction between a trans woman and a cross-dresser, transvestite, chick with a dick. I mean, those are different animals than a trans woman. Trans women is a very politically correct ideal, Anyway, continue, Sid. I just had to stick that in there.
The final word about sexual perversions. As a primitive animal instinct, sexual activity is very rarely consciously aimed at procreating. When natural human behavior manifests in the wrong sex, it still remains genuine human instinct that could, under the right conditions, serve the purpose that it evolved for. For instance, a masculine woman could mate with an effeminate male, and who knows, each might admirably fulfill the gender role that is usually associated with the opposite sex.
Okay. Okay. Is she not kind of locked into gender roles herself, Sid? With that?
Yeah. She's
with that
not,
little.
Yeah, I don't think she'd be open-minded at all.
Okay, but look. I could mate with a woman right now. The thing is, it just really wouldn't be on the level of sex is supposed to be like some sort of a pleasure. I would be like procreation to me in a way, more so than the actual enjoyment of sexual fulfillment. I know maybe that sounds kind of funny to you, but I mean, it's sort of like, I don't see why I would have to be, making it with a very masculine woman in order for me to fulfill some sort of sexual obligation. I could make it with any woman, just
that's
if
you.
I feel up to it.
And she's like you say, she's building stereotypes for some reason.
But one thing I want to tell you, Steve, and our listeners too, I don't consider myself bisexual at all. I'm same-sexer who will straight women on occasion. I don't believe in bisexuality. I think that's just hogwash.
So
please, I'll explain to you afterwards. I would just want her to finish so we can talk about it.
Okay.
In my opinion, it is only appropriate to speak of perversion when the behavior is harmful or an unwelcome intrusion to others, or even to oneself. Making well-intended sexual advance to someone who is not interested does not count if the intruder gracefully accepts that no means no, and does not make a nuisance of themselves.
Meet Rob.
You may well be thinking, what on earth would Angelica know about it? But, as an asexual, my view is untainted by my own sexuality, and I can look at the behavior of...
She said she was asexual. I didn't know that. Oh, you know what an asexual is, Sid?
Yeah.
Somebody who does not pursue sex. Mm-hmm. So maybe you were right.
Objectively. Bye then.
Is that it? Okay. The way she's laid down the biological, basis of sexuality, opposed to our traditional, hey, we're in love, let's have union. out of love? What do you think? Does this ring true to you that, sex between heterosexuals is all about making babies?
Well, again, like if in your 20s and 30s, yeah, and 40s maybe, yeah. But,
Okay, but now, like,
but
when you want,
I don't think not. It's all about it, but it's a part of it's part of the game, right? But when we're past the childbearing stage, then obviously it becomes for pleasure only.
okay, right now, like, if you wanted to have sex, you just get a hooker, right? It wouldn't be nothing to do with childbearing.
Well, I wouldn't need a hooker, but it would have nothing to do with childbearing, yeah.
Right. So, I might put that. Okay, the world's oldest profession really doesn't have much to do with childbearing, right?
What doesn't?
The world's oldest profession. It's not about, pumping kids in the world. It's all about satisfying the dude and getting the money.
I guess, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so. All right. What do you think of people that call themselves asexual and aren't about sex one bit? I mean, does that make, human race sense to you or not?
Sure.
Oh, really? So, you could be an asexual yourself?
I don't know. I'm not quite sure to what depths somebody who calls himself an asexual is actually not interested in sex or doesn't pursue it, or maybe they're in denial. I don't know, because I don't really understand it. I understand what it is, but I can't say I understand
You just haven't met an asexual yet.
Oh no, I have. I've met people who claim to be asexual,
Right.
but again, so what?
Well, I mean, we're in a phase right now with the gender equality and, third gender. We're like in a. Okay, when we went to college, people would talk about the anti-nukes and apartheid. Now the kids are talking about safe spaces and gender rights and trannies going to the restroom. You see, it's the new wave. So, I mean, you've heard
I
of
don't talk about it
pansexual.
here. You live in a different world to me. I'm telling you.
Really? Okay, so like you don't come across it on the Google Hangout scene, people talking up pansexualism and LGBT and all sorts of stuff?
No, really.
Not really. They're more talking about boobies
Talk about things like
and
yeah, we'll go to
standing up
boobies
naked in
and
front
then
of the
we'll go
camera and
to
confessing.
Hillary Clinton's boobies and then Huma Abedin's boobies.
Okay, why do you think Rob is fixated on the women's breasts? Your own analysis of that.
Well, because he's a guy like everybody else.
You really think it's just purely because he's a guy?
Yeah.
I'm a guy. I don't fixate on breasts. I'm sure there's other guys like me who don't fixate on breasts. But why do you think, for example, he has to, every woman that he runs into, he has to, eventually demand that they show their breasts to him.
Well, apparently they say that no two pairs of breasts are the same, right? So maybe it's his curiosity, his innate curiosity.
Actually, he gains a lot by demanding things of people, right? Like he demanded Down to confess for him. He demands me to confess. He likes to demand things of people. So,
Yeah.
whenever he sees a woman, he feels it's incumbent upon him to demand that they show their breast to him. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, like this scene, it doesn't interest you a bit. It makes you feel uncomfortable, talking about.
No, I just don't have anything to say. It's kind of, like not boring. Yeah, no way, maybe boring.
It's boring. You think sex is boring? Okay.
No, I just think that doing it is better than talking about it.
No, really.
Or talking about it while doing it or whatever.
You're a man of action opposed to words, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you get any action while you're on, Google Hangouts?
Do I get any action while on Hangouts? Define.
Well, I mean, you're in a Hangout, you see somebody that you find attractive, so, you try to take it to the next level.
No, I'm too shy.
Oh, really? Why?
Why?
Yeah, I mean,
Because being
coursing
shy,
around with women.
actually being shy is a good. It's a good. It's a good. It's a good word. A good protector.
Okay, because you don't want to get in a jam with a woman, right?
Right.
You see an attractive woman, so you just won't tell her that. You just are too afraid.
Pretty much. Pretty much keep my thoughts to myself. Yeah.
Would you rather tell the woman that she's attractive?
No. I'd rather she tells me.
Okay,
And then I know where I stand.
Okay, well, how often does that happen? You see, it's not so much you, Sid, it's the culture and society that we're built in. The women aren't supposed to, venture
Well, that's not true.
unless you're ripped
That's
out of your
not true.
mind,
That's
unless you're
not true.
built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
All it takes is a. The problem is that it usually involves alcohol for women to sort of
Loosen up.
loosen up and actually become a little bit sort of alpha or the chaser or the whatever.
Well, they have to lose their inhibitions, right? Because they're just
Yeah,
are too.
and I don't really like I don't really like drunk women, and it just doesn't work out.
Well,
Yet that's the only way they're ever sort of themselves in a way.
oh, really? Once they, you know, loosen the bonds, they'll be themselves.
Yeah, well, they'll be someone different. Put it that way, not necessarily themselves.
Okay, you're like kind of terrorize the women on the whole, right? You just
I just don't trust them.
theory of sharing shit with them.
No, I just don't. I just keep an arm's length from everybody. I keep my relationships at arm's length, and then there's no problems.
Right. Did you ever get lonely?
No.
Okay. Well, I know you're kind of reticent, but is there anything further you want to add?
No, I just wanted to take in that person, that point of view, hear what comes out of it, what you think of it, and I think we pretty much accomplished that. What do you think?
Didn't find anything thought-provoking in the least?
Not really, no. Can't say I did. Did you?
Well, I invite our
what's the
listeners if
biggest
they find any.
question? What's the biggest question you have regarding this?
Well, I think she's on point, but the thing is that, for example, let's say, I got with, of course, she's demonstrated that she's an asexual, but if we were in a relationship, then I could just claim, well, I'm going to do my biological thing now and just start hooking up with any biddy I want, and it's just not like a basis of a relationship, the biological angle. I could see some difficulties with that viewpoint. But, to me, she sounded like a romantic for being an asexual.
You found something romantic in there?
She was, her viewpoints were, kind of basis in romanticism there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I didn't think that she was like biased, or it was her viewpoint, her opinion wasn't exactly.
Usually viewpoints are that way.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I can't say I'm any the wiser, I must say, after watching that. But thank you for bringing it to my attention. Thank you for
any listeners, if you want to put comments, more than welcome.
Yeah. For now, until we see you again, goodbye.